Well, one of our Studio Insider members asked this. In comments, first of all, Richard Schmid loved to paint from still life. Can you please show how to set up a still life, background, and how to light it? Or is natural light better? Well, this is going to be fun. Well, still life is a subject that is done in numerous ways. So I'm going to narrow it down to the way Richard Schmid approached it, and also one of his students and also later colleagues, Kathy Anderson. So I want to direct you to Richard Schmid's website. Of course, Richard's no longer with us, but his family's keeping his website going, richardschmid.com. And there you can go and look at the lithographs they've chosen to reproduce of his paintings. In the still life section, I ripped this part from that to use as an example for you. Also, go over to Kathy Anderson's, KathyAnderson.com. It's Kathy with a K, Anderson.com, because the way she's excellent with arranging still life for still life paintings. There are some basic principles that traditional still life painters use, and I want to introduce those to you and show you something of how Richard and Kathy together, their work pretty much falls in the same line as far as arrangement goes, and also the kinds of subjects that they would most often choose. So let's just do that, and you can go from there. And we'll also go do some little experiments with lighting a little later on in this tip. But let's first of all look at the major principles. Now, when you're arranging still life, yes, the background does matter, but usually you want the attention to be on the still life. And Richard's paintings did always make the attention on the still life. But if you look at it and analytically, not just as what it is and not just to ooh and ah over it, but look at it analytically at the arrangement, then you can see. Now, basically what you can look for, still life can be put on a vertical format, going horizontal or going vertical, or it also can be put in a circular format. If it's in a horizontal format, this is the sort of thing that the still life painters will often do. They will arrange, you see, in this particular example, you have a horizontal arrangement. And when you have a horizontal arrangement, you also want some vertical in there, but the horizontal is emphasized. And so that would end up being an arrangement that would go horizontal and vertical. And often, sometimes it's referred to as the L arrangement, but L also could be backwards or as a backwards L. But the leg of the L, the vertical leg could be shorter or longer. Those kinds of things are variations. Also, the vertical could be at the top, and then with the emphasis. The horizontal could be at the top with the emphasis of vertical on either side. So that's one way to arrange for the still life. Now, the other way, there are two other, you might say, directional or patterns that a still life can be arranged in for a painting in more than the traditional. And the one is the triangular arrangement. You'll find the triangular arrangement the same thing. It could be any shape of triangular arrangement. And sometimes you'll see, like in this one of Richard's, it ends up being more of a four-sided arrangement. See, as it moves like that. But that would be a combination of, it could very well be something like this, where there are four-sided arrangement, or a three-sided arrangement like a triangle. That is the way you arrange the images so that the eye sees them fall into a pattern. So you see the vertical is emphasized here, and then we have a diagonal emphasized here, another diagonal emphasized here, and then a shorter diagonal emphasized there. And we see the more, as I said earlier, the horizontal here. Here we see more of a triangular arrangement where the emphasis seems to be these in this direction, going this way, and then back in this direction. This one seems to take on more of a circular arrangement, the way the flowers are emphasized, the colors are emphasized, but you could also see a more of a four-sided arrangement. This one is obviously a triangular arrangement, and then we have another here where the horizontal is emphasized, but you see there's always some shorter vertical motions, images that take on a vertical emphasize there. And this one is one that has sort of a window shape to it, where there's an arch at the top, and that's just the placement of the image. So those are just the traditional ways that we can arrange still life, but in there we have a whole lot of variations on that. Within that, if you will notice, there are variations in size, and you can see variations in color, but you can also see repetition. So repetition and variation in size and color are important to still life in order to keep it interesting. So we're going to show also now a little something about lighting. And I want to talk about, notice that before we do that, that the backgrounds here are all not significant, but they do play an important part in the negative space to give kind of a foil or an environment for that still life to live. So we're going to switch now and talk a little bit more about lighting in a very simple still life setup. All right, when you're creating your background for your still life, the important thing is how those shadows on the folds are arranged. So I'm going to do some rearranging here of shadows. And as you see the way the shadows are arranged now, where we've got the emphasis of shadows is coming from this corner right over here. You see that? So what we're going to do is just play around with it. Now what you do there, play around with it until it feels right, but don't make it look fixy. So I'll see if I can do that. So let's see. First of all, I'm going to put some emphasis on this shadow. Just a little bit more emphasis on this shadow. Shift it just a little bit. There we go. Create just a little bit more. And let's say on this side, let's see. What I'm doing here, I've got a vertical here. Now, this is not an ideal still life, but this is just me trying to show you something about the still life. But I might say that it would be better if you have images that you really enjoy looking at and the way they fit together or the way they are arranged together. So don't just throw just any piece of junk in there. But anyway, all right, so I'm going to go over here now. Do I need to flatten this out a little bit? No. You see what that does? That makes the shadows over here on this side too prominent as compared to this space on this side. You see that? So I'm going to flatten these out a little bit more. There we go, like that. And let's put a little bit more of a dip right here. Okay, now they see, but we have more of a triangular arrangement of those shadows. And that's one thing I just want to emphasize to you, that you want to create the background according to, you want to create the folds in the background according to the way they're going to create interesting negative shapes within the positive shapes of your painting. Now this one might just be just a little bit, move that candlestick over just a hair. Yeah, maybe, and then not have shadows going up the back of the candlestick. Let's go right over here. See if I can pull those over just a little bit more. Ah, there we go. That's a little bit better. Now I've got just too much, a little bit too much emphasis on fold. Let's get a little bit more fold at the side. There we go. Put a little bit more sag in that fold. Right there. It's got it too prominent. So now let's just move it that way and get those out like that. I wouldn't call that ideal, but it is better than it was. And so you can do the same thing with the fabric on the horizontal surface. But one thing that you want to pay attention to with your lighting is how the shadows are falling, how the shadows are falling on the shadow, and how the shadows are falling on the images themselves as related to. And sometimes your shadows from the images can be a major part of your composition. Now, as far as lighting goes, the way we have so many choices in lighting these days. If you prefer the old-fashioned way of just a window light, well, of course, it would depend upon the time of day and the weather, or whether you have an overcast day or fully lit, fully sun day. So you would arrange according to what that light. You would turn your still life itself in the direction of the light according to how those shadows are going to fall and how the light's going to fall. But that's something that you play with, and you just find something that seems to please you best. But remember, those shadows are shapes too. Now, the other thing is when you're working with artificial lighting, which is just fine. We have all these choices these days, and so we're going to play a little bit with artificial lighting we have in the studio here, just to show you the difference lighting can make. Now, one of the first things that we want to do is to turn, we have it lit right now from two sides, but we have the shadows, we have it lit so the shadows are falling only on one side. Now, I want to warn you about double-side lighting. You don't want double shadows to show in your still life painting. So create your lighting so that you don't get, that you only get one shadow from your images. I'm talking about cast shadows now, not form shadows. The form shadows are important too. Those are the shadows that are created on the images themselves. And the cast shadows are those images that are cast from the images. So you want to consider all those. They are shapes too, and how they are working in the painting is just as important. And look at how Richard handles that in his paintings, and especially look how Kathy Anderson handles those in her still life paintings. So we're going to change, and we're going to turn off one of these lights now and let you see what happens when you have a light coming in from just one side. So Roger's managing the light panel, and he's going to turn off one of these lights now. There we go. Now, do you see the difference? You see how the light is emphasized from that side over there, and we have a de-emphasis of light over here. So you see the shadows get a little bit, the shapes of the shadows on the fabric changes. And you can also, we won't do that here. We don't want this to go on like forever. You can change the amount of light, and you can see that will emphasize the shadows even more. And so Roger's going to play with that, giving a little bit more light and then a little bit less light. And look especially at the shadows. You see how the cast shadows now are decreased, or the amount of cast shadows, the way they are playing on the fabric, are decreased by more light on just one side. So let's decrease that light just a little bit now. Let's see what less light will do to it. Well, you can see now that with less light on that side, we have more shadows, but they are more subtle, more shadows on the fabric. They were subtle. I might mention that in the studio we have an additional light, an overhand light that is to the candlestick side of the image. So the important thing is no matter, just pay attention to what the degrees of lighting do to the shadows. And if you have the ability, if you have lighting, for example, that you can control with your phone, or that has some sort of control where you can control the amount, you can play around with that. Or you can also play around with having different powers of bulbs. For example, 300-watt bulb will produce the kind of earlier effect we saw, whereas maybe a 50-watt bulb would produce more like this effect. So you can play around with that too. Let's switch that now, Roger, and let's get the light on this. Turn that one off and turn the one on the other side on. There you go. Let's look at that one. That one's just with the overhead light that's on the candlestick side. You see how many more cast shadows we see on that fabric there? And that adds to the interest of the whole thing. Okay, now turn this light on, the one on the side of the candlestick. And now watch, see, do you see those shadows change? So you see the kind of lighting is really, really important. Now, I would also like to play around just a little bit for you for the fun of it with the color of the light. So can you change it there to just keep it there, just that one light, and can make it a little bit cooler. Now, as he changes the coloring of it, there we go, color on the light. Do you see how the color, the feeling of the cover of color over the whole thing? It gives us more of a cool feeling. And you notice how the color on the tomato actually changes. See, just a little bit more. Let's take this, see how far we can take that cool. There it goes. There we go. And now we're going, is that warmer? Yeah.
Yes.
There we go. And you can see there's a really, really warm light. That's a greenish, has greenish tint to it. Really, really warm light. So you can, now these days, we have that capability. Well, our artists in the early days, before we had these filters, electronic filters on lighting, artists could use gels like the theater people did. Those gels in front of light to change the color of the light too. So you have all those choices of the color of the light. And now I wonder what happens. There we go. There's a reddish color on the light. You see how, oh my goodness, how that really, really did that. Notice how the tomato now begins to lose its color as the light gets more and more red. That's a lot of fun, isn't it? So, you know, that you may want to do a still life where you have an environment that would have a redder light. I mean, for example, suppose there is a sunset. Okay, we're going to, is that a greener light now? All right. What's the most extreme lighting you can give us, Roger?
There's different ones here.
Oh, wow. Okay, now look at that. Now we have no color at all. That's a blue light. And see how that blue light just subtracts the color out of the tomato. That shows you something about color. That tomato in real life is kind of a red-orange tomato. And you see how that blue light just subtracts all that color out. So if you want to do a value study, you could put maybe something red, orange. You could throw a blue light on it and get a value study. So you see there are all kinds of different things that you can do just with lighting itself and just with cast shadows. Well, we're really going. Now you change that and we begin to see a little bit more red. What'd you add to it?
I took away all the blue and green.
There we go. There we go. There's the red back. Okay.
And that increase the red.
Increase the red, increase the red, increase the red. Wow. Wow. I can't see it. Yeah, no, that takes all the color out. Yeah, that's the equivalent. When I was a student, we would to check value. We used to have these transparencies that were red that we'd hold in front of the thing, whatever we're looking at, just to see what the value. And there, you're really seeing more of those form shadows appear on the shapes themselves. So this shows you many, many options that you have with lighting. Now, there are other things I want to add to it that we won't do here because I don't want to make this so long that you get bored. But you could change your position. You can have your position higher up. With the way you're looking at your image, you could be looking a little higher up, down onto the image, or you could be looking, you could choose to look from one side or another side of the image of the whole still life. So you see you have a lot more options with still life than you might have realized that you have. And especially when you consider all those things that you can do with shadow and for creating the background and changing the color of light, changing the position of light, changing the location of light, and then also how much light you want on it. Whether you want a really, really dim light or whether you want a really light light. So I think you're going to have fun playing with that. Be sure and view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.